Back in 2024, geez, time is flying by so fast, I made 2 separate videos each covering the emergence of a brand new comic line for the biggest publishers out there. I'm talking about the new Ultimate Marvel Comics and the extremely popular Absolute DC. A bright future seemed to be on the horizon when I made those videos, but in the year and a half since I talked about them, things aren't quite what I imagined. On one hand, you've got the Absolute Universe absolutely thriving beyond what anyone could have imagined, while the Ultimate Universe ended? Yeah, it's weird. I'm not going to go in depth on the individual series here, but I do want to talk about both of these things as a whole. Why is Absolute DC doing so well, and why is Ultimate Marvel pretty much dead in the water? First up, let's talk about Ultimate Marvel, because that's the big elephant in the room here. As I mentioned, I already made videos talking about both of these things, so if you want more context, I would go back and watch those first. But essentially, this new but already ended Ultimate Marvel line began as a reimagining and somewhat continuation of the original Ultimate Comics, which the maker, who was the Mr. Fantastic of the original Ultimate Universe, who became evil for reasons I don't feel like getting into, he went off and created his own reality that he had somewhat control over with some other bad guys and some heroes who were also bad guys for reasons I don't feel like talking about. But then some of the heroes found out about that and they ended up getting their powers in different, interesting ways. Now, in the brief time that this line existed, we got a variety of titles. You got some interesting ones like Ultimate X-Men, which reimagined them as Japanese children in a horror setting without the kind of Xavier Institute or costumes. You also had the Ultimates, which is their version of the Avengers, which was super political, not very subtle, but was very appropriate for our time, anti-fascist time-traveling adventures. You also had some comics that felt more like just the regular comic line with some differences here and there, like Ultimate Wolverine, where he started off as this world's Winter Soldier. That was interesting, but then it just kind of turned into pretty much just another dark timeline version of the X-Men. It did create a weird distinction where you have the Ultimate X-Men line, which totally reimagines the mutants, and then in the same universe, Ultimate Wolverine, which has a bunch of mutants that are very similar to what you remember. It's a very jarring distinction. Another one of these very similar with some other differences in there is Black Panther. He fights Moon Knight for a bit, there's a cursed vibranium spirit, and also Storm is there, who's not to be confused with Mae Storm from the Ultimate X-Men comics. They're 2 different characters. And lastly, you've got the most popular comic of them all, Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man was incredibly popular because it finally gave readers what they wanted, which is Peter and MJ in a family and everything there, but it all just ended way too soon. And see, the biggest issue with the Ultimate Marvel Universe is that it stuck way too close to its original plans. First of all, every issue takes place 1 month after the last, which forces the series to follow a very particular kind of pacing that sometimes makes things feel really slow, and other times makes it feel like things are going by too fast. Now, it's interesting to pace things out in a very particular way, especially a way that mirrors the monthly release schedule of these comics, but at the end of the day, you should pick the pacing that best fits the story that's being told. Secondly, instead of giving creatives who wanted to keep these stories going the opportunity to expand on this incredibly popular imprint, Marvel decided, nope, the plan was to end things after 2 years once this first story arc wraps up, so that's it. Again, it's interesting to have a particular end goal in mind. Your story should have an ending. It's also okay to readjust your plans to make room for something better. That's important just for life in general. Although this is the same company that refuses to undo the whole Mephisto's curse on Spider-Man thing that I will not stop talking about every time Spider-Man gets involved. Fans have wanted this to change for 20 years, they haven't done it, so it's not really surprising that they're very stubbornly sticking to their plans here. Even though the Ultimate Universe is done now, it's not completely the end. As the Ultimate Universe finale, or whatever the last issue was called, it does have a page at the end saying the Ultimate Universe will return. It's just that no one is sure how, or when, or why they so stubbornly stuck to their guns and ended it now, completely killing their momentum. I'm not going to lie to you, audience, I'm feeling a little bit sick, and I feel like I'm losing my voice a little bit, but I'm going to keep the momentum of this video going, and we're going to move on now to Absolute DC, which is spreading like wildfire. Again, you can go check out my video on it if you want more context, but essentially the Absolute DC universe, like the Ultimate Marvel universe, is a world where a supervillain, Darkseid in this case, created it in his own image. This is a world where things are skewed more towards the dark than the light, so the villains have the upper hand, and our heroes, our protagonists, they retain their core absolute values, but the rest of it is stripped away or is different. And also their lives are significantly harder. So you've got Absolute Superman, who didn't crash land on Earth as a baby and was raised by the Kents. He spent the first 10 years or so of his life on Krypton before everything fell apart, and then came to Earth with this fascist regime from Ra's al Ghul, who's typically a Batman villain, but he didn't really get to know the Kents that much. You have Absolute Wonder Woman, who doesn't get raised on an island with other Amazons and all that. She instead is a witch with a giant sword who was raised alone in hell by Cersei. Although, as the story has progressed to this point, she does pretty much have the same characterization. You got Absolute Flash, which is a young Wally West. He's on the run. Yeah, funny, get it? He doesn't have a Speed Force, he doesn't have a Flash family. He's kind of a misfit on his own. You've got Absolute Martian Manhunter, who doesn't have the traditional superhero appearance. Instead, it's this incredibly psychedelic, trippy, medium-bending story, which, in my opinion, the standout of the Absolute universe. It's very creative. You've got Absolute Green Lantern, which strips away the Lantern core, the costumes, the rings, but still has characters using their willpower to overcome the conflicts. Absolute Green Arrow just started, so I don't really have that much to say about it, other than he's not like this kind of quirky Robin Hood type. Instead, he's a murderous vigilante, which is oddly reminiscent of the CW show, but it's still something unique, I guess. And lastly, of course, we have Absolute Batman. Look, I like it, but I do think its popularity is a bit staggering. I mean, right now, DC has about 40% of the current comics market share with Absolute Batman at the top, but look, I will say, the reason is pretty clear. When you compare Ultimate Marvel to Absolute DC, you see the level of freedom given to the DC creators and allowing them to make the kinds of stories they want and that people want to see. You should allow the creatives to do what they want to do, even if that's different from what the original plan was. It's a skill to not stubbornly stick to your plan, to instead assess the situation and pivot to something that's going to lead to more success. This is why Absolute DC is dominating. It's why Ultimate Marvel is already dead, but will maybe come back later. As for the future of these different universes, Absolute DC is going to continue expanding by, not prematurely ending the franchise and also expanding into video game territory. It's got some video game collaborations there, as well as television, because a 3D animated Absolute Batman series is on the way. Now, if you ask me, I think it's a little too soon for that, but people like it, and I'm sure it will get the resources it needs to succeed, given how much of a moneymaker it is, so here's hoping that it turns out well. And on the Marvel front, I guess the Ultimate Universe will return eventually. It'll be pretty awkward if they end up announcing its return or something whenever I post this video. I've waited a bit after it officially came to an end to make this because I was wondering if there would be anything, but nope, not yet at least. In the meantime, Marvel is actually releasing a separate comic line called Midnight Marvel, which reimagines some of its Marvel characters with a horror twist on their origins. So you've got this gross version of Spider-Man, this eldritch version of Fantastic Four, and then just the regular X-Men if some of them were vampires, which has been done before, so I don't really know what's going on with that. If DC keeps cooking with their Absolute line, it should encourage Marvel to rise up and counter with their own quality stories, whether that be giving even more attention to their Midnight Universe than they did the Ultimate Comics, bringing back the Ultimate Universe with a level of freedom that didn't exist before, or, better yet, just doing both at the same time. Anywho, if you read Ultimate Marvel and or Absolute DC, let me know in the comments what you think of them, what you'd like to see of their future. Are you disappointed that Ultimate Marvel has ended? Are you happy that Absolute DC is succeeding? I'm going to keep an eye out on what's next because things have taken turns that I have not expected when I talked about them originally in 2024. Leave whatever your thoughts are in the comments below. I'm pretty sure I already said that, but my voice is giving out, so I'm just going to end the video now, and you guys can go on with your day, and I'll go on with mine. Alright, that's it. Goodbye.